We want you to come to understand the true essence of going with the flow. And so we're going to start at the beginning of who you are and remind you that you are source energy in physical bodies. And as that source energy, oh, were you ever going with the flow? You are tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You were pure positive energy. You were only a stream of well-being, a powerful, focused, non-physical energy. So as you made the decision to come forth into this physical body, you felt no discomfort at all about the variety that you knew that would surround you, because you knew that all you had to do was focus on any part of it that you liked and activate that thing in your vibrational pattern long enough that law of attraction would begin then to bring that very thing into your experience. So it was just a matter of focusing in order to choose. Focus upon what I want, achieve vibrational alignment with it, and thereby choose it. But so often what happens as you are sifting through the contrast is that while you are choosing what you do want, you are also aware of what you don't want. And there's a sort of human pattern that seems to have evolved that says, I really, 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 really don't want that. And because I don't want that, I now know that I do want this, but I really, really do not want that. You don't want that either, do you? You say to others, I don't want that. I've never wanted that. I don't know anybody who wants that. I don't know why that even exists. I do not want that. In fact, I don't want it so much that I am going to ask the legislature to make a law against that. I don't want that. I don't want that. Do you want that? I don't want that. I don't want that. I would so much rather have that, but I don't want this. Why do I want this, you ask? Well, I want this because I don't want that. I do not want that. I think it's wrong. I don't want that. And I'm not the only one who doesn't want that. There are a lot of us that don't want that. We really don't want that. And I've seen so much on television about that. The airwaves are full of that. And I do not want that. I don't want that. I want this, but I don't want that. Can you imagine going to the cafeteria or to the buffet and spending a lot of time explaining to the people behind the glass, I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want that. And in time, they're going to say, what do you want? Just tell me what you want. I got a spoon? You got a plate? Just tell me what you want. Well, I don't want that. I've had that before. I had that last week and I didn't like it, and I'm allergic to that. That makes me fat and that breaks my face out. I don't want most of that. I don't want most of it. Most everything you've got there, I don't want. And the nice person is losing patience now, but the universe never does. The universe stands in never-ending patience, waiting for you to find vibrational alignment. As we said, we want you to begin to think of going with the flow, and we want you to understand what that flow is. We want you to understand that you are source energy that was the flow of well-being, and as you came forth into this physical body and you see the contrast that surrounds you, that contrast causes you to give birth to a rocket of desire. That's more of that flow. And the thing that we know that we think many of you have forgotten is that when you, from your physical format, define something that you prefer and you give birth to that preference, source energy flows immediately and completely to that preference and becomes a complete vibrational match with it. So you could say, source, the source part of you, just like it knew would happen, has now benefited by your exposure to the contrast and has come upon a preferred experience. In other words, the entire universe has just benefited, has just expanded as source flowed toward your rocket of desire. That's why we can write a book and name it so perfectly, Ask and It Is Given. Because when contrast causes you to prefer this, source immediately becomes one with it, becomes the vibrational equivalent of what you have asked for. In fact, you've asked for a lot of things. You never stop asking because contrast never stops giving you preference. So as you prefer, every preference, big or little by your estimation, goes into this vibrational escrow and continues to accumulate, continues to perfect itself, continues to become your vibrational escrow. So when you begin to think in terms of going with the flow, the big benefit that it gives you is that it helps you, it forces you to begin to remember what the flow is that you're going with. What is this flow? Well, it's the flow of who I am. It's that flow of pure positive energy. It's that flow of that worthy being who came forth into this environment to have the experience of adding unto all that is and experiencing the expansion of the universe firsthand. So this is the most important thing that we want you to hear from us here today. In fact, it's so profound, so important that if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would write it down. And we would repeat it over and 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 over again. I am where I am. I am where I am. I am where I am. Not, I am where I am. I am where I am. I am where I am. And I got here with a lot of effort, didn't you? I am where I am. I am where I am. But where I am relative to anything, relative to my body, relative to my clarity, relative to my finances, relative to my relationships, relative to my work, relative to my empire, relative to my government, relative to... I am where I am. But where I am in relationship to where I am... let's hear that. I am where I am, but where I am and where I've been has caused me to become more, because you are this broad, non-physical energy that has become more, and so I am here and I am here. From your physical standpoint, I'm here and I feel like this, and I'm pointed toward who I really am, and I can hear the call. And as you begin to hear the call of Source and who you really are, you will discover that in that call, there is never condemnation of you or anyone. There's never judgment about where you are. There's just this understanding that here's where you want to be. In other words, do you know that Source is so here where you have projected yourself to be that Source never comes over here to see how you're doing? If you feel not enough, it's because you're not letting yourself go with the flow. In other words, those feelings that I must figure out my purpose in life. And we say, your purpose is continuing to evolve. And that feeling that I don't have purpose is only the feeling that you get when you've turned upstream instead of downstream. It's only the feeling that you get when you're not allowing yourself to go with the natural rhythm, with the natural flow, with the natural current that all that you have lived before is causing in this powerful now. So we think the art of allowing has taken on a new look for you. And we think going with the flow is something that will forevermore be in your consciousness, in your conscious, deliberate mind. Because now you understand, like you have never understood before, that life is supposed to be good for you, but you are not doing something wrong when it is not being good for you. You just need to relax, and it will get better right away. It is our absolute promise to you. It's easy to get vibrationally up to speed with who you really are when you relax and listen for the keys. So, what do you want to talk about?
This has all been perfect. This is perfect timing. My issue is that I am so ready to take care of other people and bring joy into their lives that often I leave myself out. And
For example,
we had an opening party and got everything ready. And halfway through the party, I realized I hadn't even put makeup on. So I hadn't, gotten myself ready as I wanted to appear, that I had totally left myself out.
and what intentions were you satisfying?
Taking care of other people,
Like, for example,
setting the stage for them to have a fun, festive time.
and was that good for you? In other words, was them having a good time anywhere in your intentions?
Yeah.
Was it satisfying for you to imagine them having a good time?
Yes.
Then did you really leave yourself out?
No, but you're right. Okay. But there's another part to it. I just have to think of how to say it.
It's all right. We've laid a really good trap for you, so go ahead.
Go ahead. It's okay. That's why I'm in the hot seat. Yes, I understand. I forget about myself.
So if you're at a restaurant and you're eating a really fabulous meal, and suddenly you realize that here I am eating here, so I can't be over there eating there and over there eating there. Are you unhappy about the places that you're not eating while you're eating this really wonderful meal? So if you're focused upon something that is calling you, something that's compelling, something that's stimulating, something that's exciting, does it matter if it's about something other than you? Aren't you the you that's having the exciting experience? The point that we're making is that here you are, and you have the ability to focus on yourself or focus on someone else. And you have the ability to focus on yourself and feel good, or focus on yourself and feel bad, or focus on someone else and feel good, or focus on someone else and feel bad. From our way of looking at it, it doesn't really matter what the object of your attention is, as long as you feel good while you are doing it.
Okay.
People accuse us of teaching selfishness, and we say, indeed we do, because if you're not selfish enough to care about how you feel, then you're not selfish enough to close this gap, and if you are not managing this gap, then you don't have anything to give anyone anyway. A lot of times, if you are trying to make things happen through your action, rather than first lining up energy and then following through with inspired action, sometimes what happens is you've got your canoe pointed upstream and you're just paddling really hard to try to make everything happen, and you just flat run out of time. And then in your exhaustion, that's when now you feel displeased that you didn't even get your own makeup on and that you weren't taking care of yourself. But it isn't because you weren't taking care of you, it was because you weren't taking care of your energy. In other words, it's not about you needing to be the constant object of your attention, it's you needing to be in control of feeling good no matter what the object of your attention is. It isn't about who you're doing it for, yourself or someone else, it's the vibrational attitude in which you do it, you see. Our rule of thumb would be, if we haven't taken the time to line up our energy, we would make no effort in terms of action toward any outcome. Because when you try to do something with your action and you have to buck the current that you've set up with your split energy, there's not enough action in the world to make the difference. Further, you get so confused you forget to put your makeup on. Jerry and Esther, years ago, were out in the desert and they stopped at a truck stop, and there was a woman who was the only person who seemed to be manning this restaurant. Waitress, busser, checker, hostess. She was everything. And as Jerry and Esther sat down, the place was full. There wasn't an empty table. And they looked around and saw that she was all alone, and they wondered if they maybe should not go someplace else. But she came right to them right away and brought them menus and water and gave them a nice smile and said, "I'll be right back," and came right back and took their order. And Esther said to Jerry, "Did you see her eyes?" And Jerry said, "What do you mean?" And Esther said that her eyes looked odd to me. It's like maybe she's on some drug or something. And Jerry said, "I don't think she's on a drug. I think she's in the zone." And Esther said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Watch her." And so here was this woman who had come to work and others had not shown up. And instead of worrying about it or complaining about it, she just set out to do what needed to be done. And she was really in the flow. She was taking the orders and delivering the food and taking the money and bussing the tables. And everyone was getting excellent service. She was tuned in, tapped in, turned on. She had the best timing of anyone Jerry and Esther had ever seen. She seemed to be able to read your mind. If you needed something that wasn't there, she seemed to pick it up from clear across the room, and she would come right over and say, "What can I do for you?" She was like a blur moving around the room. And at the end of that day, we promise you, she was not complaining about how much she had to do and how many people she had replaced. She was tuned in. She was in the flow. She felt invincible. She felt clear-minded. She felt productive. She let herself be who she is. Every life experience that you have, when you have an experience where you forget about yourself and you don't put your makeup on, you launch a rocket of desire that says, "I'm going to take better care of myself." And when you're in vibrational alignment with who you are, you get the inspiration to do that, you see. When you're in the flow, whatever you are needing to assist you in the production of whatever it is you're wanting to achieve comes easily to you. It's when you get out of flow that things start getting jerky. And it's from that framework that you and most people would ask such a question, you see.
Yep. I get it. Totally. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.